Montgomery County. I know how much of a monster you guys are as an alcohol beverage service. But first of all, Melissa, thank you very much for having us here today. I know that we're second, third, maybe. So this is we're all still very much getting used to this, and thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Absolutely.
I've brought in some of my colleagues today. I've got Dan Callaway up here, as his name on the screen is Bardstown Bourbon. Between myself and him, I look up to this gentleman. If you visit us in the distillery, he is the gentleman that is basically dealing with anything that you are to do with as a visitor and hospitality at our experience of what we have as our distillery. Whilst we're talking away and on the screen, and whilst you can see our faces, we've also brought in our director of marketing. We've got Laurel Altman here. So if there's any questions out in that you're going to ask along the way, if we don't cover them, she's going to give us a little sly nudge on the side and going, hey, or if there's things that can just be answered in quick yes or no questions, that's what we can do there. However, we wouldn't be here today and you guys wouldn't be able to brought any bottles on the shelves of your local liquor stores without Prestige LeDroit. We teamed up with them in beginning of February. Stacey here is a part of Prestige LeDroit, and thank you very much for the great effort that you guys do in supporting us. And I believe that all open liquor stores within the ABS do have our products now. So thank you very much for that. I know it was a great effort in the past few weeks to get all this together, especially in time for tonight. So yeah, thank you. And thank you also for the sale that we have going on right now with the Fusion. That's even lower than DC prices. So yeah, that's incredible. So I think that's going to be the reverse. People are coming from DC up to Maryland for a change. So thank you very much for all the support that you guys do for us. So other than Chris A over here, Whiskey Rocks, that's clearly got the inside scoop on us. Has anyone, I'm just going to see show of hands here, just ask a couple of questions and try and get a gauge of who does what. Who's been to Kentucky before? Show a hand. Oh, I know I am. And just an FYI, this is Virginia. I'm in my house in Nova, not in Kentucky. Okay, so that's quite a good set of people. Who's been to Bardstown Bourbon Company before? Okay, so just the one. All right, well, that makes our life easier to start from scratch for you all. So Bardstown Bourbon Company founder was Peter Lofton. He started out back in 2014 when he was trying to source some whiskeys from across the nation and found that there were very few selections for him. Part of this is a frustration for him. He made a good amount of money in the telecoms companies out in North Carolinas and wanted to buy a substantial amount of whiskey. After being frustrated and not being able to get really what he wanted or having any type of choice, he was like, well, we need to make a change. Bourbon kind of needs to step up and modernize and be a bit more approachable to everyone, not a select few people, and be available to everyone as well. So him and this gentleman that has kind of worked in the industry for just a few years, his name is Steve Nally. He worked with Maker's Mark for 30 odd years. He started off as just a janitor and worked his way up. He lived in the town. He used to cycle past the distillery as a kid. And he worked his way up to be master distiller by the time he retired. He did all of this, and between him and Peter Lofton, there are a few other people that joined their team, and they've basically created Bardstown Bourbon Company of what we know today. Dan, have I missed too many things out in that kind of little...
You're nailing it. It's perfect.
Yeah, and that's what it kind of comes down to. So who are we and what we do? I'm going to kick into the brief thing. I'm going to leave Dan here to talk about the ins and outs of how the creation of the whiskies are, because we'll get to why he's so important with these key processes. We'll get to that shortly, so I'm afraid you've got me to talk with at the moment. So with Peter Lofton, we've got Daniel Mendel, Daniel Linde, and Garrett Black were some of the original gentlemen that came together, and we wouldn't be here today without them. So thank you very much for everything they did for setting their foundations down. So what makes us different from other whiskey distilleries on the Bourbon Trail? And to be honest, once all of this is back up and running again, and it's safe to travel again, reasons why you should come visit us is: one, we have a distillery. Two, we have a tours and tastings. Okay, so pretty much everyone basically does those. There aren't that many other people, and we were very much the first to have a fully working bar and restaurant. We've also got a cocktail. So when I say the bar and restaurant, we've got a full-on culinary team. We've got a scratch kitchen that does everything from the beginning and creating some of the best twists and fine food that you can get hold of. And then also we have our tasting room team. The tasting room team don't just offer Bardstown Bourbon Company products. We want everyone to enjoy bourbon. We offer all types. And at the end of the day, going back to what Peter Lofton did, it was about custom distilling. So now we have 41 different mash bills, and we make for 27 different customers. We're actually more of a custom distillery than anything else right now. But we're in Bardstown, in the heart and the homeland of the bourbon capital of the world. And that's really what makes it different. Whilst we're making all this production, we're waiting for our own juice to get a little bit older and a little bit sweeter and a little bit better, a little bit more rounded. So whilst we're developing all these different stages, we've got our 3 different bourbons for you. Dan, would you care to shed a light on a couple of extra things that we have
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
experiences at the distillery, and why these 5 people join us?
Awesome. Well, just want to say thank you guys for having us on. Happy, proud to represent Bardstown. I'm actually a Towson High graduate, so not too far from Montgomery. Are you guys Orioles fans or Nationals fans? Which way do you go?
You're asking all of us? Everyone's.
How about raise your hand if you're an Orioles fan? No one? 1, 2? Okay.
Yeah.
See, you pull for the winners. I'm diehard Orioles. I have an old Chris Hoyles baseball card signed. So that's how far back I go.
Let's go now.
I had 3 people from the Baltimore Bar Guild asking me if it was you, that is you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
They were like, did he go to Towson? I'm like, we'll ask him.
Yeah. I'm not, big Baltimore fans, but Montgomery County also great place to be.
I went to Delaney High School for the
Oh my God.
I know. We're like neighbors.
I have a Chris Hoyles broken bat. I could run upstairs and get it.
Wow. Small world.
Wow.
Oh no, I think Dan's frozen. I think he froze out of excitement.
You guys there? Okay.
Oh, there we are.
She said she went to Delaney and my whole internet crashed.
I know. Sorry.
That is unfortunate, but we'll get past it through this tasting.
Okay. So
Nick covered it. The coolest thing that we've created is really an experience, and that's what it's all about, is coming and visiting, seeing, as Nick touched on, the culinary team, the beverage team, the distilling team, everyone working together to take this modern perspective on what whiskey can be. So we make blends, we make finishes, we look at it from the point of view of a chef, how they would look at bourbon, how a distiller looks at bourbon, how a cocktail specialist would look at bourbon, and just the whole business in general. How can we break into this industry and approach it in a modern way? We celebrate the history of bourbon. We celebrate Bardstown being the capital, bourbon capital of the world, but we want to carve out our own story. We started distilling in 2016, so our story is young, right? We're just taking the first steps. Started at 1.5 million proof gallons. In that time, we've quadrupled our size. We've doubled twice. So we make 7 million proof gallons now coming off our still this year. Puts us in the top 10 for distillery size. In that 7 million proof gallons, we have over 40 recipes. It's actually going to hit 48 recipes this year. So Maker's Mark, 1 recipe, Old Forester 2, Heaven Hill has 5. We have 48 recipes that we pull off A lot of that quarterly, we're constantly flipping. We like to think of ourselves, and I think it's accurate, as one of the most technically advanced distilleries in the U.S. And you'll see that when you visit. Our core tenets that we really celebrate with that transparency. When you come, you'll see a lot of glass. You'll see a lot of recipes on labels. We'll answer questions about what's in your bottle. We innovate. We're always kind of, with those 48 mash bills, pushing the envelope, seeing what we can do. And I think you really experienced that tonight. And then we collaborate with our finishes throughout the company. Between those different culinary, beverage, and distilling programs, we're always collaborating with each other. So collaboration, innovation, transparency, that's what we're about. And I hope you guys really get that by the end of this evening. So thanks for having me.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think that really kind of brings us into, yeah, like Dan said, we started off in 2016, 1.5 million proof gallons. Then that pumped up to 2017, 3 million proof gallons. Then a couple of expansions later within the same 12-month period, we went from, what's it, 8 fermentators to 16, and we're like, hang on, let's just go
all the way
straight
to 32.
Yeah. Within the space of a 12-month period, that brought us up to July 2018 to 6.8 million proof gallons. These are numbers that we weren't expecting for the first 10 years, let alone for the first 2 cycles, or 2 financial years for us. And that's really how it is that innovation that we're talking about, and that transparency. We're letting our customers know, and we're letting you know about who we collaborate with as well. We'll touch on that a little bit later. So for now, one of my favorite things to do is to show you one of the first videos that I saw about the distillery. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. I've just disabled some settings for the audio, so hopefully you're going to be able to see the audio on this as well as the video. But if you bear with me 1 second, I should be able to pull up a video for you, and everyone should be able to see that. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. And if you care to mute yourselves, and then we should be able to see and hear the video of what we have. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So I hope that got some of you thinking about some bourbon. So that gets us on to the point of drinking bourbon. Some things that we've probably talking about right now is where we've done that innovation and that transparency, where we're very much moving forward. However, we are respecting older times as well. And that really brings us into the fusion of times and bourbon as well. So along that cliche and pun, I'm going to let Dan, if that's cool with you, Dan, I'm going to let you introduce whiskey number 1 for us that we're going to be tasting along tonight. This is going to be Fusion.
Cool.
Who has, just for a show of hands, who has Fusion with them today? Yeah, that's a good few people. I'm sure there's a few people that are hiding away is probably drinking this as our everyday whiskey. So I'm going to, whilst Dan's talking, I'm going to get up some of the technical notes for you guys and show this along. So this is the reason why I might jump in and out of the screen, but you should be able to see him as well whilst we talk about this.
Perfect. All right, our Fusion blend. Super excited about this one. This actually won Whiskey Advocate number 11 on their top 20 whiskeys of the year. So to come right out of the gate with this product was really a special one for us. The Fusion is a blend of product distilled at Bardstown Bourbon Company and sourced bourbon. So what Nick's showing you is that a total of 60% of this was distilled on site. Keep in mind, we've only been distilling since 2016. So our oldest product just hit 3 years old. We're at about 3.5 years old. So this is our way to introduce our product into the market. So a total of 60% ours, 40% sourced. So it's a fusion of young and older bourbon. It's also a fusion of the different perspectives that went into blending. As I talked about before, everything we do here has a distillery, culinary, and beverage perspective. So we fused how we see bourbon into this blend. When we set about creating this blend, we had over 50 different options to choose from of different mash bills, different ages. We put them together, kind of like an NCAA Final Four bracket. We lined them up against each other, blind tasted them, scored them until we got to this final blend. This is the one that won out of all of them. We also threw finished products in there. So other things that are young and old, say a High West, you know, they do a similar thing. All kinds of bourbon went into this these blind tastings. This was the winner, proofed it down to 98.9. It's actually a 4-grain bourbon. If you start from the bottom, 42% of this has a high rye content, 36% rye. So you're going to get spice, you're going to get zip, you're going to get sizzle off that young high rye bourbon. 18% is a classic wheated bourbon. Steve Nally, our master distiller, was former master distiller at Maker's Mark. So he's kind of regarded as the king of wheated bourbons in our industry currently. So we love playing around with what wheat brings, kind of the softer notes. Think the difference between wheat bread and rye bread, right? The spice versus wheat kind of lets out the sweetness of the corn. So we have those different grains creating the 60, and then the remaining 40% sourced high quality 12-year bourbon. We'll continue to release this blend. We're shooting for that 6-year mark on age before we release truly 100% Bardstown distilled product. We don't want to release early. We want to release when the product is right, when we believe it's aged correctly. Until then, we'll continue to put our product in with source bourbon to create the best blend possible. So this is our Fusion. This is actually number 2 that is out right now, and soon we'll have number 3 as our product continues to age and get there. Any questions on Fusion? Go ahead one more time.
Oh, I'm just going to mute everyone again. Please feel free to raise your hand on the controls if you would like to shout out. We'd love to highlight you guys and hear the feedback from you. The whole point of this tasting, the reason why we're not doing it in a formal tasting, is we want to hear back from the customers. We are a modern distillery. We respect tradition, but also we still keep the ball game moving. If you don't want to talk out loud, then feel free to pop out the message, the conversations or questions in the chat as well. So, as Dan touched upon and we spoke upon earlier on. So, how many people here are NBA or like college basketball fans? There's going to probably be a few of you. Yeah. So I was living in Baltimore on South Charles Street, over on Fed Hill when I first experienced my first March Madness. I lived on South Charles Street. It was interesting. It was quite an eye-opener for it. So, however, then I get used to this bracket system. That same bracket system that you would use for the college systems is also how we come up with our blends and what we do as well. So as Dan was saying, that we've got some finished products in here and we've got some original products that we've made. This is that fusion between the old and the new. So between our distillery team, our marketing, production, the culinary team, the beverage team, we've brought some of the pros from each of those areas. They go up to our class, what we call our classroom is, so if you do a distillery tour, that's where you guys are going to be sat at the beginning of it and doing a tasting and a flight. And then, so they were in there for days upon days upon days, and you'll frequently see this on our Instagram for Bardstown Bourbon Company. You'll be able to see us, and we very much do let you guys in and on what we're doing. See, there are some times where we can't release who is who. So, for example, in Fusion, we aren't allowed to say exactly what that is because of a non-disclosure agreement. However, if you guys care to talk about it and Google it and put it in the chat, that's nothing to do with us. And that's the great thing about these Zoom tastings. That's what you can do. But unfortunately, we're not allowed to do that. So between the Fusion and old and new, you're going to get some of these lighter notes. You're going to get some of that youthful kind of hint straight away. You're going to get the green apples, the honey. Sorry, I'm looking at my tasting notes up there as well that I've written out for these. And yeah, you should be able to enjoy them. Danny, what do you kind of see in these?
The main thing you'll get here is balance. That was the word we were driving for, is balance. Balance between that, like Nick said, the bright, the apple, the spice of the young, and the oak, rich caramel classic bourbon notes of the 12-year. Finding the balance, and it's super apparent on the finish. It's just a clean finish. Makes it one of my favorite sippers, you know. Also works great in cocktails.
I haven't had it in at least 5 days, and that leathery tones that you get from it, I think it's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
So you said cocktails?
With this one, because it's got the young, which can cut through, you know, a lot of the vermouths or whatever you're putting in your cocktail. It can stand up the bright young spice, but balanced with the age, it works very well. Boulevardier, this one, ridiculous. So try that out.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
Are we doing Discovery?
Should we move on? Any other questions about Fusion? And feel free to ask us, like we said in the chat. I'm more than happy to hop back onto them as well. This is very much an open for all. We can handle it. We got this, especially when we've got Dan to help out. So
yeah. Any other Orioles or Chris Hoyles questions, please just put them in the chat too. Happy to answer.
So,
Fusion question.
Okay.
You mentioned number 2 is out. Number 3 is coming soon. Did you set aside a certain quantity of number 1 for later release in the case of folks such as me that may have come to not discover your distillery until after that product came and went?
Awesome question. The answer there is yes. We have over 400 vintage whiskeys. One of the coolest things about visiting is celebrating the whole history of bourbon. You know, while we innovate, we want to respect the past. We have over 400 bourbons all the way back to 1892. So what we're doing with our releases that come out, we set aside 3 cases. We put them into our vintage whiskey library. So there's a really popular one that just ran out was our apple brandy finish. People are asking for it, so you can come, you can still taste a pour, you know, at a slight markup, a pour, and experience that. So there are 3 cases of Fusion 1 set aside exactly for that reason.
And also, part of my negotiations is because of Montgomery County and the ABS team are starting to really get behind us and support us, is this allows me to actually break into those 3 cases. So as Montgomery County residents, this is like amazing what you guys are doing for us and allowing us to do Zoom tastings. So when we reopen, to answer your question, frankly, yes, there will be an opportunity within Montgomery County. Also, if you can't get to Kentucky, or if those cases run out, I've got a bottle and 2 bottles maybe right now set aside so that we can actually do a dinner, and we can so that we can actually taste through these in restaurants safely and securely, obviously once we're allowed to reopen. And this is what we're going to be able to do. So the more that you guys buy into it as a county, the more that I can show some love back to you guys as well. And this is really why I've got this red face and smile right now. It's not only because I'm in my spare room and it's hot, but also because of the excitement, and you guys have just been absolutely incredible showing all this support for us as well. So number 2, literally discovery number 2.
What is it that the county stores have?
All 3. So all 3 products that we're going to be touching upon today. So that's Fusion Series number 2, Discovery Series number 2, Collaborative Series, the Prisoner Wine Company.
Awesome.
You can go onto the ABS site. Everything's up to date. We've got all the right picture images, all the right inventory on there as well. They've done some massive upgrades as well. Even during the COVID-19's been really hitting them so that they don't have to go into their offices, and it has put a strain on your IT. However, they have fought through this and managed to support us, get this tasting going, and also get us online as well. So it is all there for you.
Nick, I just sent out a link to everybody so they can go directly to the portal for your 3 products.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay, number 2.
So moving on to discovery number 2, right?
Yep.
So everything we said about the process and the approach to fusion can be said about discovery. The difference is that discovery is 100% sourced bourbon. So it is all acquired bourbon, and the end game is to celebrate the art of blending and create the best blend we possibly can. So blending in bourbon, traditionally not looked down upon, but certainly not elevated in the way it's elevated in Scotch, Japanese whiskey, champagne, tea. You know, you have these magnificent blends where the end product is greater than its individual parts. In bourbon, it's traditionally been what's the highest number is the best product. You know, is that a 15-year, 18-year, 23-year? Now we're coming around. People realize that the blending can be celebrated. It's not about putting a neutral grain spirit in. It's not blending in that way. It's finding different, unique bourbons with special flavor profiles that we can put together to make an incredible product. So this is our 2nd discovery release. Our first one was a completely different joining of mash bills. This one had 3 aged 10, 12, and 14. So it's rich, it's aged, all Kentucky bourbon, all high quality bourbons, the same team coming together, working as a team. There's no master blender. This was our shot at making the best bourbon we possibly could make. It's released cask strength, so you're in control of your dilution. You can put a couple drops in it. It really starts to open up. It's a special, high-quality product, our premier blend, Discovery Series number 2. Anyone got one in front of them? Any lucky ducks out there?
Any serious whiskey fans? Oh, whoa, no. Samples sent to you is not part of the deal, young lady.
This is incredible. This is one of my runners for whiskey of 2020. This is I'd put it right up there for this blend. It's incredible.
And then it goes back to I had a friend of mine asking yesterday, going, "Hey Nick, within your lineup, I want to have something for this weekend and something that I can mix with and play with and then also drink. However, I know your whiskeys are a little bit special right now. he is part of the bourbon group that's on these Facebook groups, but it's a closed group. So there's very much a black market into it. And he saw the price of what the Discovery ones are going for right now on the resale market, which obviously is not legal. And that's the reason why it's a closed group. But then he's like, well, how many of the Discovery 2 should I stash away? And my immediate response is none. Just drink them, enjoy them. Just do what you do. And I was making cocktails with this last weekend, albeit it was wonderful cocktails. And these are probably going to reach for about $23, $24 if you're drinking these as a cocktail in Montgomery County. But you get everything that you pay for it. And that's part of some of my joys. That 12-year base whiskey that 1 and 2 were kind of dancing around. I think it's just a fantastic whiskey to start off with. And then it's just expanded on them, adding that 14 and adding the 10 into it as well.
Yeah. I just did a tasting 2 days ago with Dixon Dedman of Kentucky Owl. I don't know if you guys know Kentucky Owl or that's out there. So we were sitting down and we were talking blends, and we did Kentucky Owl blends, and then we did this blend. If you don't know, we produce all the product for Kentucky Owl moving forward, and he's just an incredible blender, incredible profile, can just really taste whiskey. And we talked about how thick and viscous and rich and luscious this Discovery 2. It does remind us of whiskeys that came out from a previous time, like the 1980s, when they used to distill lower and dilute less. You would get these rich, almost syrupy, dusty bottles. And the Discovery 2 has that high alcohol, but not a thin burn, and just rich, kind of fat, sits on your palate. And, we're both of a fan of it for that reason. It reminds us of kind of what bourbon can be. It's awesome. Side story.
Yeah. Yeah, and it comes down to it, having that sip of it, that longevity of the taste, the way it really does just dance around your tongue as well. It's one of the most elegant whiskies that I've tried, aside from before I accepted my job working for the company. I was very much lucky to try this just before you did.
It's the Brady Anderson of whiskeys.
Yeah.
No.
What's wrong with my heavy
He was a big deal a long time ago. Brady Anderson.
This is a dram. Is it to taste out of a Glencairn? Can you tell it's one of my favorites? So yeah, no, it might just have to go into a cocktail later on. We'll see.
Awesome.
So how are we doing on questions, guys? This is available, I believe, currently at 9 of your stores, or some of the larger sites. And also, I'm sure this is going to be one that is going to be on that premium list that's going to be put up on those top shelf once the restaurants reopen. For those of you in country clubs, we are very much in talks with those as well. This is a sought after item. This is part of, in the normal world, outside of a control state or a control county, this goes under the allocation brackets. So being able to be part of Montgomery County, and you guys being able to not have to play that ridiculous game of, oh, well, you have to buy 1 million of these to get 1 bottle of this $12 whiskey. This is a little bit more pricey, but this is very much a special occasion whiskey, or a Friday whiskey right now saying, I got for another week of quarantine. That's kind of what I like to celebrate with.
Got a question. Can you talk about some of the thought process behind the 150 price point? You're competing with some really storied established brands. That's a great question, right? Some competing established brands in that price point. Part of this, there's many reasons why we, or Nick, if you want to go ahead, but there's reasons we want to play here. The number one reason is we think we can beat these quality bourbons. This price point is one that we feel like we have the tools and the blending ability to play in that price point.
Sorry to interrupt. So
go ahead.
I pre-guessed a question along these lines. So I went on the ABS site and previous sites and within the DMV and got some average prices together, right? So Kentucky Owl, $249 to $299. Barrel bourbon, 149-ish, 179, 180. Clyde Mays, 10-year, 180. Cream of Kentucky, 150.
Okay, can I stop you right there, Nick?
Yep.
All right, Cream of Kentucky, just so you know, is a completely sourced one bourbon, right? It's actually a bourbon that you'll see in a lot of bourbons. It's kind of off the record. You'll see it in Kentucky Owl. You'll see it everywhere. Just one bourbon, rebottled, sourced, you know, that you're paying that premium for. This uses a multitude of bourbons. You know, what you'll see is just someone I use Cream of Kentucky as an example, not to knock them, but just because a lot of brands you'll see do this, basically take open market whiskey, purchase it, take an old label that's been discontinued. Cream of Kentucky is an old label. It's come and gone. Revitalize it, buy it. You know, Michter's did it. Michter's bought that label for free. You know, just put it on there and then sell it at a huge markup. This is not that. This is not one bourbon that was just repurposed. This is a team of people putting together many different quality bourbons and making a blend they're proud of. So that's the difference between Cream of Kentucky and us.
And yeah, it just comes down to it. The complexity sometimes between having a single bourbon can be the best thing, but also it can be the devil of it as well. So where we do bring in exactly the same process as we did with Fusion, we brought in our culinary team, we brought in a distillery team. We don't just have one or two people sat out back in our lab room picking one whiskey or two whiskeys that they think is going to be the best. We do pick over 30 people to bring everything together and make sure we're making the right whiskey, that are pros, that do know how to blend, that do know how to enjoy it just for what it is. This for me is a complete game changer, even just putting a drop of ice into it and trying to stretch it out, especially if you're not used to being a cask whiskey guy or lady or whatever you may identify as. It is one of those beautiful just whiskeys for everyone to enjoy, and that's really what it's about for you. So I think we're probably but yeah, Robert, cask strength. However, like I said, on a Friday night and then you wake up on Saturday morning and you've been drinking cask strength and enjoying it, I think that's sometimes where I need to just hold back myself, because yeah, that's just what is happening right now. So we're going to move on to whiskey number 3 and the final whiskey of the evening. But before I do that and entice you guys with the Prisoner Wine Company, how many of you here have got, say, more than, and I want to see show of hands as we're doing throughout the evening, would say that you're a whiskey fan? I'm going to change the phrase of that. I'm going to say whiskey aficionado or enthusiast. You've got more than, say, 5 whiskeys. Maybe 6, or for anyone that hasn't put your hand up, you stick to that one whiskey that you absolutely love and enjoy, and you could talk for days about why you love it. Have we got anyone putting their hands up for that? No? I know there's a gentleman here with a Four Roses bottle in there somewhere earlier on. And yeah, I'm not saying, and luckily everyone's in a slightly different order, because there were definitely a couple of people that were pointing around. Yes, you, sir. But there's never a problem. Okay, so the reason why that is not a problem, we currently have a competition running up right now, and that is World's Top Whiskey Taster. What does that mean? Is that you enjoy whiskey. That's what it comes down to. I'm going to get into some of the details or grand prizes for you guys for it. And yeah, that's where Whiskey and Rocks have got the official stuff. And there's a gentleman on that front of that I recognize right now. Dan is in a lot of our photography. That is very much, he works in and out of the distillery 7 days a week or 8 days a week. I'm probably sure it feels like. So what are the prizes for this competition? Before I get into the details of really what you have to do, is I'm going to start off with $20,000 cash check. Okay? If that doesn't get your ears pricked up, I don't know what will. And that is just really where it starts out with. Who likes to go to Whiskey on the Rocks? Is it Whiskey Rocks? Whiskey Rocks. The Montgomery County's yearly entertainment is quite good fun. So what about, if not saying there's anything wrong with that at all, and you're more than welcome and would love to take you guys along to that and buy you a ticket for it as well if you're the winner, as living in Montgomery County, is also going to some of the US's biggest whiskey competitions like Whiskey Fest in LA or Chicago, or going up to some of the bigger events up in New York. There's 3 major events that we've kind of earmarked, and because of obviously what's going on, there's a bit of uncertainty who's actually going to be safely opening and who's just going to be opening, and we want to make sure that we're going to be safe for you guys. So we can guarantee you that there will be 3 safe events that we will be sending you to as well, and that's really comes down as being an ambassador for us. But before you get there, we're going to have the regionals here in Maryland or DC. Then if you get through that stage, you don't have to be a bartender. You don't have to be a professional. We just want to see some enthusiastic people talk about whiskey. And that really where it goes into, whether you've got a small collection or whether you've got a bookcase full of whiskey, not pointing or looking at anyone. Or whether it's just that one whiskey that you love and adore and you've been drinking it since you've been 21. And maybe probably a little bit beforehand, but you enjoy it and that's what you like. We want to hear about that. We're going to ask you to put it into a video, put it online, or just send it to us directly in between 1 and 3 minutes. Once you get through that regional stage, then we're going to invite you to Kentucky. Once you're in Kentucky, you're going to go up against the finalists from each of our states that are included in on this. To put you out there with some of them, that's going to be along the line of Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Illinois, California, Florida, Colorado, Nevada, and Texas. So everyone from those regions, and obviously the Mid-Atlantic where we are, will be having someone sent over. So obviously it's quite a cool group that we can bring this together. Not only will you have to come out there for the final, but if you do win, you're going to have to come out here because we're going to teach you. And we've teamed up with the Moonshine University for the Stave and Thief Society. We're going to teach you how to be an executive bourbon steward, which is something that I have to do. Dan's already done it. My colleague Laurel has to do it. Is that Melissa? Did you say you are as well? Yeah, so I'm not allowed to challenge yet. Dan, where's yours?
You got me there.
Wow. All right, okay. There's even there are some inner rules as well within being a bourbon steward.
But you've got to have the coin to challenge.
I know that's the reason why I'm not really allowed to. So no rounds have been brought yet. So don't worry. And that's really what it comes down to. And then also you get to spend some time with Steve Nally, our master distiller, and blend some whiskeys with him. And I can't tell you guys how much I would be honored to have that blended whiskey enter our lineup here in the DMV. Especially as a MoCo resident, that means that you guys would probably be the only market able to have this. So that would technically be MoCo having an exclusive whiskey, or under legalities, Maryland having an exclusive whiskey because we have to open it up to the state. So there are some of these things, but going back to, it's at $20,000. 3 different whiskey tours around the US, coming out to Kentucky a minimum of twice to come be with us and spend some time with us for the final and for the bourbon stewardship and tasting. But so my wonderful colleague Laurel has put out the link out in the chat for you guys. The entry can be on YouTube. For some of you on YouTube, it could be Instagram, it can be Facebook, or even if you're want to be a little bit shy about it, please feel free to email us as well directly, and you can get hold of all of our details via that website that's just been linked in.
Right. And with this competition, just one thing to stress, we're looking for creativity and passion over being able to pick out, random notes out of the whiskey. What we're really looking for is enthusiasm on this. So don't be intimidated if you can't pick out some weird note that everyone else smells in bourbon. This is about a love of whiskey. So go ahead and submit.
Okay. So whilst you're all thinking about that, and I can see some private messages come through saying, no, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I don't want to be pushing much past 9 o'clock. So we've got a few more minutes to talk about the third and final whiskey that is on offer. So before I jump into that, who here has had the Prisoner wine before? Yeah, I know I have. So part of that is we're good friends with the guys over at Constellation. We're actually part of Constellation Venture Brands. Doesn't mean that they own us or control us in that say. They do have a seat in conversations with us. But this means that we can have some fantastic collaborations together. And the Prisoner Wine Company is one of the collaboration series latest joint ventures that we've done between us and the guys over at the Prisoner Wine Company. So I'm going to pull this up on the screen whilst Dan, would you mind introducing?
Yeah. So one of the things we really celebrate at Bardstown, besides blends, is finished whiskey. We feel like we're onto something with our method, how we go about it. This Prisoner wine was a great one for us. So if you know the Prisoner wine, it's a red wine, Napa Valley blend. There's 5 different grapes that go into it. It's a Zinfandel forward blend. Every one of those grapes that go into the wine are individually barreled, then put together. So Zinfandel is in its own barrel. Then they make the wine blend. We sourced 40 different barrels from the Prisoner Wine Company. We brought them over. We basically pumped them with inert gas, argon gas, put them in a cold truck to preserve the integrity of the wine, shipped them over, and immediately filled them with bourbon. The cool thing we did is we retained the ratio of the Prisoner wine blend. So it's a Zinfandel forward blend. 15 of the 40 barrels were Zinfandel barrels. And then it scaled down, retaining the same ratio. We put bourbon into those barrels. When we put it back together, we essentially had a bourbon finished in 5 different wine barrels put back together in the ratio of Prisoner wines. We basically recreated the Prisoner wine blend in a bourbon. The other cool thing about it is you'll notice it's cask strength at about 101 proof. So how we did that, the bourbon that went in was above 110 proof, but the wine being about 15% alcohol brought the total level down. So it's like instead of diluting with water, how a lot of bourbons do, the proof was brought down with wine, which gives it such a fruit-forward richness and full body. It's just awesome. The other thing to mention, and you'll see in the picture, with our collaborations, it's truly a celebration of both companies. So you'll see Bardstown Bourbon, right underneath it, you'll see the Prisoner. We also feature the logo of the Prisoner wine right on the bottle. That goes with the transparency and the collaboration. We want to show who we're working with. We want to be proud of our finishes and our partners. So this is the second wine finish we've done. The first one won Best Finished Whiskey in San Francisco. Best in class for all finished whiskeys. This is the second one. We just put it out. Nice 9-year Tennessee bourbon is the base. We're hoping for big things on this one. So it's awesome.
And just for a question, who here hasn't tried any of our whiskeys yet, or who was just curious about our whiskeys? And one thing is that if you haven't seen our whiskeys yet, and if you're just curious about us and you wanted to see who we are and what we're about, is it comes back to that transparency, where in these bottle shots and everything that I've shown you on this share screen here for you, these are renders here of our actual labels themselves. Let me just get rid of these for you so you can see these a bit more clearly. One, this background here, that is the distillery to start, and that really shows you that glass front isn't just about pretty looks. We want everyone to be able to see in. For if you want a little bit more of a taster, every Thursday online, is it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're doing virtual tastings?
We do the virtual cocktail class every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
That's the big one to tune into. Yeah,
okay.
Virtual cocktail class. You can sign up just go right to our website, bardstownbourbon.com, and it'll be right there. You can click on a tab and get there.
Yeah, that's what we like to see, bottles. So as you can see here, these are the renders that wrap around the actual bottles themselves. We have the mash bill on here. It's that full transparency for you. You can see everything. We want to make sure that we're not trying to hide anything from you. And like I said, it goes back to that original video where it says there are no hidden myths or legends. It is just good whiskey. And that's really what we're about. So where we're getting into, I'm conscious about people's time and not trying to take too much time away from everyone. Have we got any questions on the mind?
I've got one. Actually, I have two, but I'll start with the more important and let somebody else chime in. You've got 48 recipes, mash bills. How many different yeast strains? And if it's currently one, is the company open to expanding beyond one?
That's a great question. So we partner with a couple different companies. You're probably familiar with Firm Solutions. That's the big yeast company. The guys do Wilderness Trail. We have access to about 10,000 different yeast strains through them. The same as barreling, the same as where we source our corn, whether it's Yellow No. 2 or Bloody Butcher. The same customization can be said for the yeast strains. So it's if you have a certain yeast strain proprietary, you can bring that in, we can use that, or we can show you different flavor profiles from different yeasts that we have in-house, and you can select if you want a really fruity note, spicy note. That's fully customizable. And the big thing to stress with our partners, Bellmead, Kentucky Owl, Jefferson's, all these guys, we make custom bourbon for them. We're not just selling our leftovers. This is intentional. An intentional bourbon created to their specifications, and with that comes the yeast.
And it really comes down to part of that collaborative series is, and we're very much open about this, when we're working with customers that we are openly allowed to talk about. So for example, High West, Bellmead, and a few others that we can run away with. If they say, hey, this is how we make our whiskey, and their team comes in and talks to our team, we go, okay, cool. Well, we can't do that exactly, but you'll be able to get everything exactly the same doing with this or working this way. And if those specifics are there, then we'll work with them to do that as well. And on to your second question.
You actually partially answered it, and that was whether you had a challenge keeping the different recipes straight. It sounds like when someone contracts you, they take the distillate with them, and you don't have to worry about mislabeling it when you're storing it at your facility.
It comes down. Go.
No, please. Yeah, no, we mislabeling would be the least of the word. We got that part. We got the labeling, but it is difficult to keep them straight. So we use a program called Ignition. This is really what makes us the most technically advanced. We have an in-house engineer who built this program, the first of its kind in distilling, to track every part of the process as we move through these 48 mash bills. It's one of the main reasons to come out and visit us and see this program in action and how we flip these mash bills and track everything. Craig, you're spot on. Organization and tracking is one of the most important things we do, and it's how we pull off those different recipes.
It comes down to the fact, and I don't want to be shy about what we're doing, because you can very much see online about this. We very much want to be a one-stop shop for some of our customers, and that's very much what they're looking for. So in a time like what we're doing right now, for the sake of our stability, is we're still going ahead with building a bottling facility right beside us. And it's one thing that we're moving along with, so that our customers, our collaborations, can really be made with us from scratch. They can be aged in our rick houses, and then we can bottle in those facilities, in our facilities as well, and then just ship it off to the warehouses where they might like it to be. Does that answer your questions?
It does, but every time you guys explain so well, I get more questions. I'm gonna give some.
Okay, before your next question, I'm gonna move over to Kelly and Ed.
Absolutely.
This one, I'm afraid, I can't actually answer myself, because I joined the company in January, first week of January. And this was, how would you compare Pfeiffer Pavitt Collaborative Series to the Prisoner Collaborative Series?
They're very different. And I if you find a bottle of Pfeiffer Pavitt, I would buy it immediately. I haven't seen one in a bit. We are making a second round of it, but that first round is hard to come by. So the biggest difference, they're both Napa red wine blends, right? But Pfeiffer Pavitt is purely Cabernet. Both were finished about the same amount of time. Both were Tennessee bourbon. So you got similarity there. The Tennessee recipe being 84% corn, high corn ratio with a lot of sweetness, richness, lets out the fruit. Biggest difference is the Prisoner wine is a Zinfandel forward blend. So it's about 50% Zinfandel. So you're gonna get way more red fruit and brightness out of the Prisoner, where you'll get more kind of dark decadence on the Cabernet. To go further, if you really want to nerd out, Pfeiffer Pavitt is northern Napa, and Napa Valley works backwards, you know. So southern Napa is the coolest, northern Napa Valley is the hottest, because you're coming off the water in southern Napa. Means the fruit is really ripe and rich. So we get that from the Pfeiffer Pavitt. Prisoner has a little more complexity from having 5 grapes and different fruits in there.
And yeah, thank you very much, Dan, for everything. It's hitting 9 o'clock now, and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I just want to say before anyone else drops off, like, amazing. We're going to hang on online for the next like 10 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes, and answer your questions as we can. But we want to thank you all, especially the alcohol beverage services, for allowing us to have this opportunity to be able to talk to people, and even people that haven't tried. And thank you, people, for owning up and saying we haven't tried it. I hope that we've given you a reason to go out and try it. But also to thank you to Prestige LeDroit for making sure that our bottles are available to buy. For you guys, the customers that have brought them, we're very much settled into a partnership between us all, where it should be supplying our products for a while now. And then also to my colleagues, Dan Callaway and Laurel Altman, for joining me this evening here in Maryland. For those, so where we talk about, we keep things local, and we're a little bit more personable than most. So Dan, obviously, he said he went to college up in Towson. Laurel has recently left living over in Annapolis after living there for a few years and raising her firstborn there. Very much misses our shoreline over in Chesapeake. And even in our side chats we're having, it's like, yeah, we miss Chesapeake. I can't wait to go out there and go have some fun out there, but also just getting out into Rockville and Maryland and just really getting back to enjoying it. I miss my Maryland plates with the amazing flag that you guys have. But yeah, thank you everyone. But please keep the questions coming. We're gonna carry on, stay on here for a good 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Mocha bourbon enthusiasts. That's a good question. I actually haven't seen one. I've seen one for the Maryland Bourbon Society, I believe it's called. That's very active group, and there are a good amount of people that are on the Maryland Bourbon Society's Facebook group, and are part of it. And it is open to all. It's not a closed society. I'm a group on it, and they haven't asked any dues or anything else from me. This is very much an enjoyable group and conversations for it. So, and just looking at what Melissa's just put up here, these tastings are every week. I'm going to put it out there and say the next week's tasting is actually a dear friend of mine by Alika. She's a wonderful lady. Like I said, it's in our whiskey world, it is about enjoying each other's whiskeys as well as our own. As innovations, we can't be a better distillery without trying other people's whiskeys. We're not just going to sit back on one recipe and rest on our laurels. It's about being able to jump out there and be further. And we encourage you to do that as well as customers. That's really where it comes into education. Dan did not get all of those books behind him without just sticking to one whiskey and one spirit. He's very much an educated gentleman throughout this. I've been joining in on this 11 o'clock call that he was doing throughout all of the close down days on the Monday to Friday. He has a educational piece for our distillery staff. However, I see someone from finance jump on it. Then I see someone from purchasing. Then I see someone from the distilling team jumping on it. And then it's just a mishmash of everyone. It is very much a community over at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Absolutely.
And that's what our whiskeys shine on as well. So just looking through some of these other questions for you guys. Anyone else got any other questions about our products, what we do? If I told you that Fusion 3 and Discovery 3 aren't that far away, would that entice anyone?
I can tell you something. I got an email today. So I'll tell you something that I wasn't sure we were allowed to say, but you know, we work with our collaborative partners a good bit, seeking out new collaborations, what we can talk about, what we can't. One came out that we are allowed to say, kind of unofficially, the email this morning. We are doing a collaboration with Plantation Rum coming up pretty soon. So the barrels are being wrapped. They're on the way. They're sending 80 rum barrels over. And they said we could talk about it. They're about to land. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. The back of the bottle here that you'll see with Prisoner, that'll be kind of their totem pole. It's some Barbados rum we're going to put in. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. And we just finalized what bourbon we're putting into a cognac blend. I can't say the maker of the cognac, but we picked the bourbon this morning that's going in. So 2 amazing collaborations are about to go in barrel soon. So please stay tuned.
Online exclusives right here, right now, by the way, guys.
So that's the first that's ever been mentioned, just so you know. And no one has ever heard that before. So pretty cool.
Not even I knew that.
Yeah.
And I can see someone hiding their mouth because they're excited about it as well. And then going into Discovery 3. Online, you can kind of find the mash bills. I can tell you that it is going to be obviously different from 1, 2, and 3. We're going to be dancing around the same 12-year-old. So pretty much there's a little bit left in Maryland. And I say a little bit, there's like 20 cases left in Maryland of the Discovery. And then it's going to start dwindling away with what it is. There was an order placed recently with our distribution company to get some fresh product over, and that's kind of going to start running away soon. So I would suggest going out to buy that if you're getting into the collector's game and you want to have the lineup of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is something that we're going to be having some fun with. And for people that don't drink in the $100 range, we haven't forgotten about you. This is very much what we're waiting to do as well. I can see there's a few of you here about what you've had and how you've reacted. We are going to have in 2022, roughly. So after about between 5 and 6 years old, we're going to have a bottle in bond. We're going to have a rye. We're going to have a wheated bourbon, and we're going to have a Kentucky straight bourbon. All of those with 100% our whiskeys in them. So our Kentucky whiskey is going to be dancing around that $30 range as well, that everyday range, where something that you want to grab, have it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when it's not in isolation at home, because I don't know right now, like on a Monday, if I can get through that during isolation right now, I'm grabbing some of my best whiskeys. And that's kind of that. I'm definitely going for my $100 ranges. So please do be patient with us on that sense. But for now, this is what Dan and the team and Laura and the marketing team, this is what they're putting together and making my life very easy, being the manager over here and trying to help get it to your fingertips and obviously liquid to your lips. So any other questions, guys?
Have you considered selling in 375s instead of 750s to double the experience for people?
So this is what comes down to our bottling facility. Have you got one of our, sorry, Craig, Craig, sorry, I'm in the US, not UK. Do you have one of our bottles to hand right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite heavy and it's not very much, to those of you that don't have it. For example, there's an engraving on the bottom of them with our B on it. There's a good amount of glass that goes into it. on our collaborative series and also our discovery series. Oh, that one's not open. Oh, no, don't open. They're brass. They're solid brass tops. There's a lot of very expensive packaging that's going into these.
I did not know that. Thank you.
So
Okay.
this is why we're trying to move away from having other sizes right now, because of making miniatures of these would not make any sense in most businesses and be able to let us survive as we are doing right now, or thrive is better word than survive. So this is why we're investing in a bottling facility. The moment that comes along, I know that obviously, for example, in Montgomery County, having splits, having minis, nips, and everything else, and liters and handles, and all of that will be coming along when we get ready to do our own whiskies for you. And that's really very much what this bottling facility is for us as a distillery, and not just being able to do that one-stop shop for our collaborative series. It's also about securing our future and making sure that we can do it at the best profits to make sure we can get the best whiskey to you guys and gals.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
I think I'm going to allow time for maybe one last question to call it 9:15. But other than that, thank you guys. Please remember, enter into World's Top Whiskey Tasters. We will be having regionals. We will get to meet us in person when it is safe to do so. We're not rushing ahead on this just to try and have a competition to have a competition. We want to make sure you guys are all safe and we're safe as well.
So Dan, Nick, Lauren, Stacy, the whole gang, thank you guys so much for doing this for us. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.